Hey, what's up everyone, this is MugenLord here, and today I want to do, I guess you would say, a post-review video. I've noticed that you guys have sent me some awesome feedback, and when it came to my last post-review video, which was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it was a spoiler/rant video after I had completed the game, and now I want to also just make this into a segment now. So when it comes to my review videos, those are more scripted. It gives you the information that you need to know, and I give you pretty much my score of the game. And then afterwards, to follow up, I would do a post video, which is a post review, to pretty much elaborate more. This is more unscripted, it's off the cuff, and I want to give you more, I guess you say, a deep dive into some of my thoughts and when it comes to my likes and dislike to a particular title that I have reviewed for you guys. And I wasn't expecting that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth video, post review video, to get the hits that I have gotten, and I really appreciate that. It was the longest video in my YouTube career. It was almost like, what, an hour and 20 minutes long? But don't expect all my post reviews to be that long. It's just that when it comes to Final Fantasy VII, I played the OG and I'm just so passionate about it. But the fact is that you guys gave me some positive feedback, and even you guys who disagree with me, we was able to have a respectful conversation, you know, and I appreciate that. That's what my channel is all about, to have a conversation, whether we agree or not. And that's what we have gotten when it came to that video. So I want to follow that up when it comes to doing these reviews. And I wanted to do this with Final Fantasy XVI. So before we even dive into this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button, the notification bell for more gaming content here on this channel. So we want to definitely dive into it right now. So when it comes to Final Fantasy XVI, I'm going to say it time and time again. When it comes to my channel, I speak my mind. I try to give as much nuance as possible. And I also always try to give a fair take when it comes to these games that I play, or if it's movies, comics, it doesn't matter. I always try to show both sides of things so you can make your own informed decision whether or not you want to play a particular game or review or watch a particular cartoon or anime, movie, whatever it may be that we have discussion on this channel. I always try to do that. And I'm not here to tell people what they want to hear. I'm not here to scratch or itch people's biases. I always try to give you my thoughtful opinion. So when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, no matter how much I really rant on this game and how much I say I dislike aspects of this game, there still were some things that I really did enjoy about this game. Most importantly to me, that really stood out the most was its characters, and we're going to get pretty much deeper into that much later into the video, but the characters really stood out the most. I did enjoy that aspect of this game, and that was one of the main reasons why I fought so hard to wrestle through this game, because it was some interesting plot threads that did happen to this game in this game that really caught my interest. And I mean, it did later fall apart, but it was still one of those strong highlights for me to continue to play this game. But the thing I really want to touch bases on first is the game's exploration. I think the open world aspect of this game is really stood out to me when it comes to comparing a lot of the previous Final Fantasy entries. We've seen this before when it came to the past entries of Final Fantasy. Exploration, and in most RPGs or JRPG, exploration really plays a big role. You know, you travel in these big landscapes, and you're exploring dungeons, and as you're going through these dungeons, you go through every nook and cranny for secrets or items to help strengthen your party, special weapons and gear. That's the best part of RPGs, is that exploration aspect, because it allows you to leave the beaten path. Instead of going down a linear plot thread, you're able to walk off just a little bit, explore, and leave everything open to you as a player to decide when you want to progress through the game. It's not artificial or anything like that to prolong the game. These dungeons are worth exploring, because the reward, the payoff, it feels so good when you decide to trek farther into these areas and you fighting, sometimes hitting bosses, or as you get deeper, you start running into stronger mobs. But as you fight your way through, you get an item, you get a weapon, you get special armor, and that feels rewarding. So when you look at these later games, especially when it came to Final Fantasy 15, they really wanted to go out into this massive, or try to create these massive landscapes. Final Fantasy 15 didn't really give me that much of an itch when it came to the exploration aspect. Yes, it did have some aspects of, hey, you know, I found this or I found that, and this could appear useful much later and stuff. But when it came to 16, man, 16 has some beautiful vistas. like landscapes. It's really, really beautiful. No matter what time of day that you're exploring these areas, the bummer part about it is there's really nothing worth to explore. It is very hollow. There's nothing worth it at all. It's that these layouts are so huge, they're only there to be used for questing. So when you get these quests, and we're going to talk about some of these quests in a bit, but that's what it's mostly used for. There's nothing worth you going off to travel to see what you can find. And as I said before, this game is more of an action game rather than an RPG. So when you do find particular materials and crafting, the crafting doesn't mean much in this game at all. It's less than an RPG. Most of those mechanics are pretty much there as an afterthought. It really doesn't spice up the combat. It doesn't make you feel any stronger than what you already are. So a lot of it feel meaningless, worthless, and everything. And it's just so sad as I'm running through these areas. I said, man, this is so incredible, man. It looks so beautiful, but there's nothing to do in them. They're just big and massive and mostly empty. There's nothing here. There's nothing to interact with. And then when it comes to the towns, when you go to the towns, and I think that's the thing about Final Fantasy 16 as well. When it comes to 16, when it comes to games like Final Fantasy 7, for example, when you go to Calm, when you go to when you see Midgar, when you see Cosmo Canyon, these are highlighted or iconic, areas that you will always have ingrained in your head. You will remember that, and along with their theme songs that go with these areas, it's always drilled into your head. But when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, locations are not really that important. Towns are really not that important. Most of the towns feel generic. Most of them are very bland, so when you go into these locations, nothing really stands out, nothing really sticks out to these particular areas, which is a bummer. And even when it comes to like the NPCs that are there, yes, it makes the place look like a bustling area and stuff like that, but there's nothing that's notable in these towns at all. These are just areas that you go in, you go into these areas, you pick up some quests, or there's a story sequence that you have to fulfill in there, and that's it. There's nothing that stands out. And what I like about Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth, especially Remake, is when you go to the wall market and everything, and how these places feel like they're livable, that you can live in these worlds. And that's what I loved about Final Fantasy VII, the OG, and just the OG Final Fantasies in general. But Final Fantasy VII Remake and Rebirth had done a good job with that, especially Remake itself. These worlds felt lived in. Final Fantasy 16, when it comes to some of these a lot of these locations, a lot of them didn't really feel very like lived in. You know what I'm saying? If you can understand what I'm trying to say when it comes to that aspect. But of course, what a lot of you guys also want to hear from me, which I said in my review, it's also the gameplay mechanics. And like I said before, the highlight is the combat. That's something that a lot of people have been talking about. It's been a lot of debate about the combat system itself, and a lot of back and forth. And it came to the point where people were saying, well, you're not a real Final Fantasy fan if you don't like the original, or you're not a real Final Fantasy fan if you can't accept that Final Fantasy tries something different. I'm all for Final Fantasy trying something different. Like I said before, every Final Fantasy entry does something different, but what they always had in common is the ATB system. It's just a different take on the ATB. They will try different menu systems, different level up systems and everything. But when it came to Final Fantasy, it was always about that. The ATB system, it was always about that. It was just a different spin on it. But once we got to Final Fantasy 15, we started getting more into that action play. But when we got to 16, this became a full-on action game. Now that's the thing. I don't mind action RPGs. I enjoy action RPGs. Man, I played the Tales series. I love the Star Ocean series. There's a lot of action RPGs I enjoy, even the Mana series and stuff. But Final Fantasy was always known for its ATB gameplay, and I've always enjoyed that because there's so many things you can do with it, and that's why Final Fantasy lasts this long, because they took that same mechanic and just tried something different with that same mechanic intact, which gave you that feel and essence of what Final Fantasy combat is. Do they nail it all the time? No, but we were willing to give this a try. But this is a complete departure from what Final Fantasy is when it comes to its combat. This is not even an action RPG. This is just an action game. They switch genres. This is not an RPG. The RPG part is so hollow. There's hardly anything there that's worth an RPG. More specifically, what I'm going to talk about is also, like I said, is the elements. There is no element system in this game. If you fight a bomb, those bomb creatures that's mostly made of fire, no matter if you shoot ice at it or anything like that, it has no elemental effects on it. If you get hit by a wind type of enemy or mob, it has no effect on you. Even if you shoot the opposite element at them, it has no effect. There's no real RPG elements in this. They have a crafting system where you can craft your weapons and upgrade your weapons. There's really no major upgrade to them. You don't feel any stronger or any powerful. A lot of these elements at the even at the shop, a lot of these elements and a lot of these items that you find to craft items all feel like afterthoughts. You really don't need to rely on any of those things in order to beat this game at all. Like I said before, this game was not challenging at all. And the problem is, it doesn't do the RPG aspect any justice, and it really doesn't do the action aspect of the action genre any better. And most people call it a poor man's Devil May Cry because, like I said, we have the battle director behind Devil May Cry 5 who actually worked on this game, and you can feel it, you can tell, you can see how Clive and his animations are when it comes to his specific attacks. You can definitely see it. And the more and more I started feeling like, man, this is not a Final Fantasy game, or it doesn't feel like a Final Fantasy game, is the fact is that this game has a training mode. The game has a training mode. You can actually go in and lab up different combos and combinations. And this is the thing that really disappointed me, because when it comes to the combat did not feel challenging to me. I know a lot of people's going to go in the comment sections and say, well, it's your fault for not trying this, that, and third. The thing about action games, when I play these character action games, or when I attempt to try to play these games, one thing about character action games like Devil May Cry or even Bayonetta, and I love the action RPG Astral Chain, one of my favorite action RPGs, Astral Chain. The thing they all have in common and have it similar to one another is that when I play these kind of games, those games actually challenges me, where that I can't spam the same strategy over and over again, because the game actually punishes me. It teaches me to say, hey, I can no longer exploit this. I need to change up my tool set. I need to actually practice certain setups, especially when it came to Astral Chain. I had to try out my different chimeras and different setups in order to get the results that I'm looking for, because the game was in fact challenging, especially the last boss. Now I know some of you guys are action game fiends. It may not be a challenge to you, but I'm more of an RPG guy, so I don't really do action games like that. I grew up playing them, but I'm not heavily into them. But the game was quite challenging. Final Fantasy 16 didn't feel as challenging as Astral Chain and Devil May Cry. I mean, even Bayonetta. This game felt easy. I felt like I was on easy mode, especially after I received the Eikon Ramuh. Ramuh Eikon was totally busted, because he had this. Ramuh had this ability where you're able to place electrical orbs on your enemies. So you had dots you put on them, damage over time. So all I did most of the game was do some combos, gain distance, and just put as many orbs on the enemy as possible. And what it does is it brings the enemy stagger gauge up. Stagger is your best friend in this game. As long as once you get that stagger up, you just brutalize the game. You can brutalize the enemies in this game. And what quicker way to actually get this to work? So there's two abilities that Ramuh have. You have the orbs that you put down, and then you have these spheres, like these javelins, these sphere javelins that you can stick. So when the enemies hit the sphere, it does a shockwave. So what you do is I put the spheres down, leave the enemy there. They already got the orbs on them, so the orbs are already exploding because you press the button, you can detonate it. It detonates, it brings it up, and then what happens is when they get hit, it also triggers the javelins that I have, and it shocks them, stagger, and then rinse and repeat. I did this throughout the entire game, and I never once got punished for it, and that's the problem. It never once conditioned me to try something else. It didn't push me into the corner to say, you know what, I can't do this because I'm actually getting brutalized out here, because the enemies is telling me that this doesn't work. I need to try something different. I need to go into the lab and try different setups. This game did not provide that. So I went through the entire game doing that. There was no incentive to try other combos. It wasn't. At this point, I wanted to get through the game. And that was another reason why I found the strategy. Let's get through it and let's beat the game. And that's the bummer, and that's the sad part about it. And the fact is that it doesn't have a party system. at all, which I talked about, where you have other party members, but they have no HP, they have no MP, they're just there. They get attacked, they can get hurt, and they don't die. And then you don't feel their presence when they're actually fighting the enemy, because they're just there as decoration, which is also a bummer. I'm like, this is not Final Fantasy. To me, when it comes to Final Fantasy 16, this game feels more like it should have been a spin-off. And I love spin-off Final Fantasy games, because the whole point of spin-offs is to take Final Fantasy out of its natural habitat or its natural environment and try something different, which is why Strangers of Paradise, which is like a Dark Souls Final Fantasy game, which I definitely need to go to my backlog and finish that and play it with my brothers. But that, I'm going to be honest, that felt more like Final Fantasy than this game felt like Final Fantasy, because you still have the class system and many other mechanics that harkens back to Final Fantasy all in itself. So just because you add chocobos in this, and even the Moogle felt out of place because of how the dark tone of Final Fantasy 16 is. But even when you harken back to that and you add the Moogle in it, it just doesn't work well. And just because you add those in there, it doesn't make it feel like a Final Fantasy game. I know people can argue, can have different opinions, and I respect your opinion. And I will also say this: if you love this game and you enjoy this game, you're allowed to enjoy it. You're allowed to like it. I'm not going to hate you for it or anything like that. You're allowed to have that opinion, and I respect your opinion. If you enjoy it, don't let my opinion of this game upset you or trigger you in some type of way. If you like the game, fine, you're allowed to like it and everything. But the combat just didn't do it for me. And also, when it comes to the attacks didn't really have the impact that I was hoping for in this game at all. A lot of the attacks that Clive throw out there, it just doesn't feel impactful. I think when it comes to action games, what makes you feel powerful is when you laying down those heavy attacks. You feel most of that impact and power when you use those Eikon abilities, but when you're using your regular sword swipes, you don't really feel it. And I think another thing where you start to feel the exhaust, especially from somebody like me that was playing this game, the lack of enemy variety. There weren't a lot of enemies in this game, or enemy types. They would take the same enemy and then change the attribute or change the coloring of the enemy, and it was very lacking. And the fact is that this game is 50 plus hours long. It's ridiculous. This game should have been at least a 15 to 20 hour experience for how repetitive the gameplay is over time. This should not have been a 50 plus hour game. And this is something that I also want to talk about when it comes to Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, which I finally completed the game, and also expect a review, and also expect a post-review video of that, which we're going to talk about. And even when it comes to that game, the game Grand Blue Fantasy Relink also has like over 250 hours worth of gameplay once you dig into the in-game content. And that also gets tiresome when you don't really have that many variety in as far as enemy types are concerned. So that's another thing that made me feel the burnout in Final Fantasy 16 as well. So the Eikon Battles. I know there's some people that was debating in the comment sections about my whole take on the Eikon Battles. I don't care what anybody say. Those Eikon Battles was trash. You can argue me to the moon comes down. The Eikon Battles was trash. Now, the credit where I give the Eikon Battles, that they look really cool. I think a lot of people who say that they're actually good is because of how cinematic they are. Yes, they are presented really, really well. But when you start scratching it underneath the surface, those Eikon Battles were lame. They were button mashers. Seriously, button mashers. The Titan battle was the longest of all the Eikon Battles. It was the worst. I couldn't wait to finish that. I got tired of it. And when it comes to these Eikon Battles, when you fight these icons, there's a pattern that the enemy have. Once you figure out the pattern, you go with the flow of the pattern. You mash the attack buttons, you mash the square button, you mash the triangle button, dip the enemy attacks, mash the square button, mash the triangle button. And imagine that with the Titan battle, where it had three different stages. You had to fight Titan 1v1 in this underground part, and then after that, you essentially had to fight while you're falling through like this cave, and then after that, you have to do like this running sequence that's infrared, and you have to run up his arm and everything. Then you have to beat up his arm. It lasted too long, and if you died, you had to do that sequence again if you died. So it was just stupid. And the thing is, gladly I didn't die in this sequence, But I remember when my brother died, he was fucking cussing. He was cussing through that sequence. So a lot of it would have been cool if they don't last that long. They overstay their welcome. And another part is they're very predictable. Once you do beat them down to like halfway through their life, you get hit with a quick time event. You hit with the quick time event, you interact with it, it looks cool and everything. And then when you about to kill them or you get them to near death, then you finish them off with another quick time event. That's the process through all of them. And I don't care who tries to defend that. That's not gaming to me at all. It's just to me, it felt like filler to me. And it felt brain dead. I just turned my brain off and I was able to complete them with no problem, no issue at all. Just turn my brain off and mash buttons. And I won. So you can argue me. I don't care. You can say what you want in the comment sections. Those Eikon battles was garbage. But to move on. The questing in the game. The quality of the questing. When it comes to the questing, man, I did not enjoy a lot of the quests in the game. The game felt like MMO questing. You fetch quests. You know, you talk to an NPC. The NPC gives you some story, and after a while, I was skipping through the story. They give you and they tell you what you need to do. You either gotta get some item, kill a couple of mobs, return back to them, get another sequence, and then bam. Didn't enjoy that at all. Now, I will say this. There are some quests that were quite enjoyable, but they were far few in between. There weren't a lot of them, but there were some that were highlights that really stuck out to me. One of them, when it came to this one quest early on in the game, if you guys don't know, you have these people, I can't remember their names. They have the mark on their face. What are they called? Bearers? I can't remember. They have the mark on their face. Like I said, I finished the game like a year ago. These people are treated as slaves. They're treated as property. They're treated as animals. This game is like the theme of this game deals with slavery. It's a lot about slavery in this game and how these people are treated. And even Clive himself, in the game was a slave himself and stuff. So you get a chance to see how the people treat these people with the bearer mark on their face. And like I said before, how they treat them. Even the children in this. Treat these people like animals and pets and stuff like that. But it was this one little boy who were pretty much killing off his slaves. Like he would get them to attack by these dogs. He had these dogs, and these dogs were killing the slaves. And you, as Clive, you are a slave yourself, and you're actually like furious. Like this little kid has no remorse for these people, and he gets a kick out of this. And the father was racist.
No! You weren't supposed to kill Wolfie. You were supposed to die. Father will have you whipped for this. Bearers aren't supposed to win. They never win.
What is this? Your father said you were being attacked.
You're not supposed to talk. Stop looking at me like that. We were only having fun.
Having fun?
Why are you still speaking? Father will hear of this.
The wolf's work, no doubt. But it's not the wolf that's to blame. Someone needs to put an end to this before it happens again.
You know what I'm saying? Against these people and stuff. So what happened was something happened to the son. The son didn't return. So the father, who was the master, sent you out there to go look for his son. And what was so crazy that I didn't expect it from this game, you found the son. The son was fucking dead. It was mauled to death. The kid was mauled to death. I was like, holy shit. I'm like, okay. But it was well deserved. And then the father, who was a piece of shit racist as well in the game, he got his just deserves as well. The dogs that he trained and stuff like that, the dogs that he trained and everything, turned on him. They turned on him and also ate him alive.
Is this your doing?
Of course not. Wolves kill. It's in their nature. Invite one into your home, he's gonna tear your throat out eventually. Same with bearers. Fed or not, they don't lack for fangs. What will folk do when they bite back, I wonder?
So he got what he deserved. His son got what he deserved, and he got what he deserved and stuff. But going through that, you felt that pain. You felt that pain that these people were going through, and you also felt the anger that Clive felt because that's his people. They're slaves. And then the other one was this knight and this whore, because in this one town there's a madam of this brothel, and this woman is very, very powerful. And it also goes to show, man, a woman don't have to be a girl boss, or a woman don't have to be as strong as a man to be considered powerful. Her femininity, her sexuality is her strongest suit. And this madam, her sexuality and this brothel pretty much ran the town. She was the madam of that town. Nothing gets by her. Everybody, even the men, the soldiers, had to go through her because she controlled the sex within that town. Because these men, you know, after a long fight and they're protecting these people, they they want to pretty much load off. They pretty much want to be able to relieve some stress, and that's having sex and stuff like that. So she would punish these guys if they do anything to violate the people, and she would say, hey, I would no longer ration out sex to you guys, and that will put those dudes back in line. So these guys show pure loyalty to her because she controlled the sex. She controlled everything when it came to women in there or whatever like that. So if the dudes got out of line or they mistreated the people, all she did was say, hey, she just pulled the women away, and that will get the men back in line and stuff. But anyway, this one dude ran off with one of her whores. So you had to go find her whore. You had to go out there and go look for her and stuff like that. Because we found out that those two were in love with each other. And what was so crazy was, once you get out there, you end up finding their bodies. The two of them end up getting killed. And it was just crazy. I'm like, this story, it was little stuff like that. And there was another story, if I can remember, it was about, like I said, it was like a year ago since I played it. It was this one town that you go to where the sister used to help out the slaves and stuff like that, but she has a younger brother who used to be one. She freed her younger brother, so now he wants to he wants to prove to her that he can be of use to her and everything. And the sad part about it is he went out there and he ended up getting caught up, and he ended up getting possessed, and you had to end up killing her younger brother. And it was just so sad and stuff like that. So it did have its moments when it comes to the questing, but it wasn't a lot of them. They were very few in between and stuff. And I wish if they would have just limit the amount of questing and make varied quests like that on a much deeper level like that, I would have enjoyed it. I would have definitely enjoyed my experience and my time playing through those. So that is a positive highlight of the questing aspect, is when you did find those little nuggets of like gems of quests like that. And then, of course, the controversy itself. Oh my god, the controversy, what we're going to get into is the social or the culture war aspect of this. The two biggest highlights that revolves around this game was, as far as the culture war, was that the game was too white. Man, we already know how journalists are, SJWs and snowflakes are when it comes to DEI, representation, and all this other type of stuff. They were upset that the game was too white, and they was trying to really force Yoshi P for an answer. And a lot of people didn't like his answer because they were saying that the game was more of a European-inspired game. Now, I remind you, the game wasn't out yet. So this is all speculation. People don't don't even know the overall story or anything about the game. So a lot of people were upset that there weren't any people of color in the game and everything like that. And when he said that the game was more of a European-inspired type of game, people didn't like that answer, because people saying, yo, it's a fantasy game. You should be able to put anybody in there, because this is not real. You have summons, you have icons, you have creatures, you have chocobos. So why is it far-fetched to have a person of color in there? Well, then you later find out, once you actually play the game and the game came out, you find the game is very heavily talks about, and it has themes of racism, it has themes of slavery. Now, if Yoshi P would have listened to these people and put people of color in there, and people would have been upset if they would have seen black people or people of color as slaves and being mistreated and treated like animals and stuff, then Yoshi P would have got slammed for that as well. So it was pretty much a no-win situation. And as I said before, me being a comic book creator and a creator of my own and create my own IP and stuff like that, I'm going to create whatever the fuck I want to create. Either you're going to enjoy what I have or you don't. You don't have to play it at all. If I don't have something that targets you, then that's fine. Then there's other media out there that can cater to your needs and stuff like that. But as a creator, I don't want people to dictate what I should be creating. If I want to create this story, have this narrative, and have it inspired by this, then I want to damn well please do that. And I'm glad that Yoshi P didn't back down, and he said wait and see of how everything going to play out. And that's what ended up happening. And I'm glad he didn't. I'm glad that he did what he did, because man, when I say it's racism in this game, it's racism in this game, and how people are treated, and especially when you got kids treating these people like animals and stuff like that. You know the SJWs would have been crying and upset and stuff like that. And then of course we have the LGBT character, which is Dion himself, and which I also found funny when it comes to this. And I'm going to tell you, when it comes to these characters, I love Clive, I love Joshua, and I love Jill, and my boy Sid, and Dion. Dion was a cool, badass character, a very tragic character. And as you play through the game, you get a chance to know more about this character, you forget that he's gay. Because the character was so well written, and you see his personal journey of him trying to gain the respect of his father, because his father is being manipulated by Anabelle Rosfield, which is Clive's mother and stuff like that. You've seen the pressure, and he's also an icon himself. He represents his kingdom, he represents the power of his people, so he has a heavy burden on his shoulders and stuff like that. But I forgot he was gay. I literally forgot he was gay, because Square Enix didn't put such a strong emphasis on his sexual identity, because that wasn't really that important. But they let people know that yes, he is a gay man and stuff like that. He did have a gay lover, which is one of his assistants or one of his commanders. He had a gay lover, or they were in love with each other and stuff like that. But it was very on the surface, which that is fine. Like, leave it at that and stuff like that. What's more important is his character.
I am here to save you, Father.
Save me?
A creeping darkness hides in the heart of Sanbreque. It stems from your wife, the traitorous Anabelle.
Not another word, Dion.
Father, though you may not see it, the darkness has taken hold of you. It has made you forget yourself. But I bid you remember, there was a time when you ruled not with cruelty, but with compassion. Why now do you turn your back on your people? Why now do you seek to stoke the fires of war? You too have borne witness to this change, your eminences. And you know, as well as I, who is responsible for it.
And that's why I enjoy it, and especially when it came to his redemption arc, man. He was a redeemed character, and he went out like a hero. And I really liked how it was written. But the funny part about all this is you have these SJW, you have all these journalists and stuff. They always talk about gay representation. They always talks about diversity and inclusion and everything. But when Dion was, now you got a chance to actually experience who Dion is as a character, there was crickets. None of these people really talked about Dion. He wasn't really celebrated on social media. It was just quiet, no lip service at all. And in the main article that was out there from journalists is that he wasn't gay enough. It wasn't gay enough, you know. And that's the crazy part about it. They just want complete gayness or degeneracy and stuff. Like, that's their identity, just gay, and it's just gay sex, gay love and stuff like that. No, they're more than that. They're still a person. They still got their struggles and stuff. Why do we got to focus on their sexuality? Just give us the character and let us determine that. And they did a good job with Dion as a character. Now, when it comes to Clive and Jill, what I love the most, and what you don't really see much now in video games, is that masculine and feminine dynamic between a man and a woman. I also thought was also pretty awesome. And the thing about Clive is a vessel for Ultima. He has his ability where he's able to collect all the different icons. So you fight the dominants, you get their abilities. Now, normally when Clive get these dominance or abilities from these icons, it's always through tragedy. You know, like when Sid died, which was, like I said before, when it came to the story, this is where the story fell apart. Sid was the most interesting part. Clive's mother was the most interesting part of the story. But the story did take a nosedive after Sid was killed off. But you get his ability after his death. You get what I'm saying? And a lot of other characters that you end up running into who are dominants, you get them normally through tragedy. What was so cool about Jill and Clive and Jill were both bearers or slaves at some point in the story. They both had their own internal demons and struggles that they had to fight. And what I loved about it was that Jill was the pure definition of femininity, because she still had this elegance and grace about her, and she stayed in her feminine form. She stayed in her feminine shell, while at the same time showing strength and reliance and resourcefulness and capability. She was still a badass, and she was the icon Shiva as well. And both of them had a tragic past, tragic history, and their tragic history is what brought them together. When Clive was going through his pain, where he had the guilt, where he thought he killed his little brother Joshua, she was behind him, beside him, always was there to nurture him, caress him, be there for him. And then once he was able to forgive himself, it was Jill's turn to go through her struggles, because her father abused her. Her father which used her when she was an icon and stuff like that. So she resented her father. Clive was there for her. I loved every last bit of it when those two were on screen. It got to the point I said, man, are they gonna kiss or not? But I was saying like, yo, every time they got to the point where they about to kiss, it always something like interrupts it. But what was so cool about the whole icon moment, because I told you that Clive always earned those icons through tragedy, it was much different with Jill and Clive. This is how Clive gets the Shiva icon ability. He got it through intimacy, through lovemaking. Him hitting that gave him the ability of Shiva's icon. Them two coming together, as one, man and woman, coming together, making love with each other. He was able to share that personal connection with her, which allowed him to be able to get that Shiva icon ability. I just thought that was wholesome. I thought that was cool. And when it comes to that, and I thought that was also pretty cool when they did that. And it was so sad at the end when it was left open-ended that Clive died, and he promised her that he was going to come back, but he never did. And when she looked out the window at the end, it was kind of symbolic. The woman was giving birth to a baby, as we also learned that Clive died. So one life was gone while a new life is being born. And when she seen the star from the sky, she ran out crying. And man, that really hit me, because she knew that she was never going to see him again. So the last time you see her is when you actually talk to her, when you go out there with Joshua, because Joshua didn't make it either. Like, both the brothers didn't make it. Joshua and Clive died. And I ain't gonna lie, that was sad. And the ending was like really confusing to me. Like, was it a story, or is this later on in the future and their story became legends? And it wasn't really satisfying to me, but it was really, really sad that Clive, the last thing he sees is his body turn into stone, because him being a bearer, that's what happens to bearers. They turn to stone as their magic and stuff deplete and stuff. And that's what happened. He's on the ocean, with his hands up at the sky, and never gets to see Jill, but he saved the world. It was a sacrifice, and that was really, really sad. And then, of course, when we talk about the last person I want to talk about is Clive's mom. Clive's mom was just the worst human being, or the worst person in this game. I think she was a driving factor to the reason why I really wanted to play this game, to continue with this game, because she was an interesting villain. She was very strong politically and everything. And like I said before, like, this game showed that women can be powerful, can be a threat without being masculine or adopting masculine traits. Like I said, it was her femininity. It was her womb. Her womb was a weapon, because she's able to birth icons. And as I said before, when her oldest son Clive wasn't the Phoenix icon, she pretty much looked down on him. She looked down on him, and she treated him like trash. That really angered me. And then her baby boy Joshua had the Phoenix, and she really didn't care about her baby boy much at all. He was sick, and all she cared about was maintaining that power. Clive's dad didn't really have much power. Yeah, he's a king by title, but his mom was the powerful one because she can birth icons. The icons is the symbol of a kingdom, that power. So she really had most of the power. The father was just there. Because what happens is when the icons, especially if Joshua would have grown up and the father didn't die, Joshua would have assumed the throne at some point. You know what I'm saying? But that didn't happen. She ended up betraying her kingdom. She sold her husband out. She sold her husband out to the enemy. That same enemy that she decided to sleep with to produce another icon, quote unquote, and stuff like that. She was just a horrible human being. And when she found out that her son Clive was alive, she put him into slavery. It was like crazy. So I'm following Clive's journey. I'm invested in his journey because I want this bitch to go down. And every time she popped up, I was invested. Every time a scene popped up with her included in it, I wanted to see what this bitch was thinking. What was her next scheme? What did she have planned? And she would have made the perfect villain. I think if Yoshi P and his team would have sat back a little bit more and really like cut out Ultima or something like that and really like crafted a better story just around her as the main antagonist, I think it would have definitely worked because I was really invested in this character as a villain. And when it comes to my video games, especially RPGs, when you can get me to hate a character so bad, that is good writing. That is a good character. Because Sephiroth used to do that for me when he killed Aerith, and he's just a total asshole and stuff like that, and just a menace, you know what I'm saying, in the OG Final Fantasy. But they ruined that with the trilogy and stuff like that. Sephiroth isn't the same. He doesn't have that same spark like he used to. But Anabelle, Rosfield, was the definition of evil personified, and I really enjoyed that. But they dropped the ball. Like, she didn't pay for anything. Once she found out that her son Clive was in fact an icon, which is infinite because it was never seen throughout history that two icons can be born of the same element. So she actually birthed two icons. Infinite, it's just his was lying dormant for a very long time and it never revealed itself. So not only that, her son Clive, the oldest, was infinite, Joshua was the Phoenix. So she would have had the most powerful kingdom with both her sons and her husband if she would have stayed there. But she was so power hungry, so selfish, and for a mother to treat her children like that, her sons like that, that was just cruel, man. That was just freaking cruel. But that was a well-written character.
Darling boy.
Is this the child you made with the Emperor? Why, Mother? Why did you betray us all?
You have no right! Answer him. We took you in, savage. Show some respect for those who raised you.
And the story fell apart after, as I said before, after Sid died, and it definitely fell apart. I didn't want to play no more once Anabelle Rosfield died. She killed herself. She took the easy route out, the coward way out. She killed herself. I thought that was a shitty way to end off this character.
Mother.
At all. No remorse at all. And even after Clive, revealed that her baby boy Joshua was alive, she didn't give a fuck about any of them, which was so sad. She still didn't give a fuck about her son Clive at all.
Honorable Elwyn, always thinking of his precious homeland. But what worth is a homeland in a world beset by the Blight?
Father did not seek to protect his country. He sought to protect his people.
A leader's duty is not to protect his people. It is to protect the source of his sovereignty. The noble blood that runs in his family's veins. So long as this bloodline remains unbroken, what does it matter if a nation falls? One can always found another. Unlike him, I did my duty. I preserved my line. I bore a son of the noblest blood, to whom the whole world might kneel. That is why I gave Rosaria to Sambrek, that I might join my line with the Lesages and birth a savior of this benighted land, blessed by both Bahamut and the Phoenix!
She's still seeing him as a thing, as a monster, as whatever she's seen him as. And man, they just dropped the ball. Ultima was just a shitty ass villain. Did not like Ultima at all. A horrible villain. Horrible villain, man. I did not like him at all. And as I said before, his motivations, him wanting to use Clive as a vessel and everything like that, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. But man, this overall experience for this game, I want, like, the game has DLC, not worth my time. The DLC takes place before the end of the game, because you never get a chance to see the Leviathan icon, so you're able to get the Leviathan icon and stuff like that. The gameplay wasn't strong enough for me to want to go back and revisit this game. The story was strong, and then it fell off a cliff as we got midway through the game. I think the game lasted longer than it should have lasted. 50 plus hours, especially for an action game like this, with little enemy variety and everything, and repetitive questing. I think that's what really hurt this game. The game was, in fact, in my personal opinion, wasted potential, because it had the themes. It had the high fantasy, it had the medieval themes. It would have definitely benefited from a class system, a party system, while maintaining the action if they wanted to keep the action and stuff. But they didn't do any of that. I think Final Fantasy 16 would have definitely worked if they would have just took what Final Fantasy 7 Remake and Rebirth had and just make that the default battle system, but with each Final Fantasy entry have a little twist to it and refine it and do their own thing with it. I think that would have helped this game even more, but it didn't. And like I said before, I'm not going to judge it on what it should have been. I'm judging it for what it is, and the game was mediocre in terms of gameplay for me. But I will say this to you guys: if you guys are into action game, I would suggest that you give it a try. If it's an action game, you love combos and you love experimentation and everything, and it scratches that action game character action game itch, the game isn't bad, but it also isn't good. It's just okay. This is an okay game. It's a 7 for me. And I remember there was somebody in the comment section said to me that this is one of the best 7 out of 10s he've ever played. So yes, there is something here for this. There may be something, the things that I may be ranting about, you may actually enjoy. So as I said before, if this is something up your alley and you want to give it a try, I suggest you give it a try, because it's not a bad game. But it's not a good game, it's just an okay game. It gets by. It does what it needs to do. I think if they would have tightened it up a bit by shortening the game just a bit, I think if they would have reduced it by 30 hours or make it 25 hours as far as the story is concerned, condensed it for the type of gameplay that it is and the variety that it has, and reduce the amount of quests, and would have stuck with some more meaningful quests, I think this game would have been easily an 8 or actually a 9. Or whatever like that, if it just would have been tightened up a bit more. But that pretty much my opinion on this. I know I ranted on a bit longer. I said I wasn't going to do an hour. It's like 45 minutes or even more at this point by the time I actually edit the video and stuff. But I definitely want to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. What do you think about Final Fantasy 16? That the game is going on, what, 2 years old now? Time can keep flying by so damn fast. I'll definitely want to hear your thoughts. Is this game worth a second or multiple playthrough for you? And how many hours did you put into this game as far as the gameplay and the combat system and stuff? I know some people I heard put over 200 hours into this game and stuff, and that's dedication right there. I couldn't even get through. I was dragging through this. This game felt like a chore, especially when the story beats start to fall apart. But they want to hear your thoughts. If you enjoy these post reviews, let me know in the comment sections below, because I'll be definitely doing more of these. But definitely expect a Grand Blue Fantasy Relink review coming soon, and also a post review of Grand Blue Fantasy Relink as well, because we have a lot to talk about with that. And I can't wait to talk about that game as well, especially I know there's a lot of you guys who were on the shelf. You wasn't sure if you wanted to pick the game up or not. So hopefully that video would inform you, so you're allowed to make your own decision of whether or not you want to give the game a try. And also, I'm knocking off these backlogs. So since I finished this game and Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, now I'm going back to Stellar Blade. I'm going to go back to finish Stellar Blade so I can have a review for that ready, and also a post review so you can hear my thoughts and opinions on that. So if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe button for more gaming content here on this channel. This is MugenLord signing off. I'll see you game fiends later. Peace out.